Hello. Welcome to the first part of new series called Second Life Ranker. And first of all, I wanted to say thanks to all of you for your great support to this series. And special thanks to my first Patreon Zoa C. If you want to support me, Patreon and Discord links are in the description. And thank you very much. Let's begin. At beginning of this series we see that our protagonist is watching his brother's image. He thinks, how could the first thing I've heard or seen about him in 5 years be a death notice? 3 years earlier, mother had already been suffering from an illness. Ultimately, she passed away while looking in vain for my little brother after he went missing 2 years ago. She suffered for a long time. She is in a better place now. He is standing in front of thousands of posters saying, seeking missing person, Jungwoo Cha. After that we see, he is sitting in an airplane in army uniform thinking, I gave up looking for my brother and left Korea after enlisting with troops stationed in Africa. I don't have any more reasons to return to Korea. He opens a box, thinking, these are the effects that were in my brother's arm when he was found. There is a picture of his brother wearing an iron armor, and there is also an old pocket watch. He picks up the picture and thinks, did he shoot some movie? He picks up the watch and thinks, this is the watch I gave him for good luck on his college entrance exam. Then we see a flashback where his brother says, I actually needed a watch. Thanks, hung. Our protagonist says, I thought this had a bit more style than an electric watch. What do you think of your older brother's sensibility? He opens and is shocked to see that the watch is working and thinks, wasn't this broken? He hears his brother's voice saying, to my brother, who will listen to this diary someday. Our protagonist stands up with surprise and there's no way this is an auditory hallucination. But there's no device on this what? His brother says, by the time you are listening to this diary, I probably will not be of this world anymore. Sorry. You must have had a hard time because of me. All I was trying to do was get treatment for mom. I thought I would be able to return quickly. But time just slipped by. On October 9, 2013, I received a strange text message. Not only was the subject matter strange for a spam text, but also, all it did was ask if I wanted to participate with no other explanation. Normally, I would have ignored it. But just thinking about the sight of mom in the hospital room and how haggard she had become, I couldn't ignore it. And so, just in case, I pressed yes. Starting that day, I began to have strange dreams. October 12, 2013, there's no way this was a dream. I was sure of it, this was reality. It's a world where other species like elves and dwarves were a given, as well as monstrous creatures like orcs, trolls, and dragons. They said there is an obelisk at the center of this world. It is the Tower of the Sun God. If you conquer it, you become God. But I was only interested in the panacea, the elixir, that was supposed to be somewhere inside the tower. October 8, 2013, I teamed up with people with whom I felt a camaraderie and began to ascend the tower. But in no way was this an easy place that allowed alternating between here and reality easily. September 11, 2013, I've resolved to leave home. It'll probably only mean about half a year of hardship. And thus, I cut my ties to reality. December 1, 2013, my team took on the name of Artia. Artia was supreme in every aspect. September 7, 2014, our conquest is taking longer than expected, and I think I will expect it, and I think I will have to spend at least one more year. November 11, 2014, trouble with an upper clan has started. An obstacle in our conquest has. On February 2015, negotiations have broken down. Has started. February 2016, a hostile clan union has crushed. We have to quicken out pace in the conquest of the tower from which war had distracted us. March 4, 2016, I have found someone I love. On September 2016, has broken out again. Convincing the other complacent clans that want to live peacefully isn't easy. And there are people on our team who are siding with. January 2017 is drawing out. Everyone is tired. June 2017, there is a traitor. There is a discord within the clan. People have started to suspect one another. July 2017, my body feels heavy, it is poison. October 2017, half of our clan's members have left. Continuous setbacks in war. My body is gradually breaking down. The one I loved has stabbed my heart with a knife and left. My body has started to decay. I miss my brother. February 2018. I am the only one left in Artia. Where did things start going wrong? February 28, 2018. The elixir is finally in my hands, but I have no way of sending it home, as I am surrounded by enemies. That's when I finally realized that there was only one person in the world who was on my side. But I couldn't let them see me in my weakness. That's why I'm leaving these journal entries here. If you see this, I'm sure you will find the elixir and bring it safely to Mom. Our protagonist gets all his brother's memories. He listened to his brother's diary again and again. A message popped up in front of him saying the succession will begin now. He starts to see his mana flowing inside his body. He says, "Mana, is this the power that the people in the tower and the other world use?" He starts to feel extreme pain in his body. After that, he listened to his brother's diary again and again. Another message popped up saying the awakening is complete. The succession is incomplete. Complete your body to finish succession. Current progress 5%. Current status, incomplete dragon body. Some of you physical abilities have improved. A nature has been realized, skill have been supplemented. Players can only register inside the obelisk. He thinks, I must learn exactly what happened to my little brother. Learn who drove him into death and why this is the state in which he returned after 5 years. And then, I'll pay it back. And do exactly what you did to him, in accordance with the ways of that world. He sees his stats window and thinks, is this a stats window? It feels just like a video game. I've finished awakening, and it said that my physical attributes were leveled up accordingly, but my abilities are still relatively weak. A message popped up saying, nature cold-blooded. You maintain cold rationale in any situation. You boast remarkable immunity against mind-control curses and brainwashing. He thinks my nature is not bad. Another message popped up saying, dragon eyes, the eyes of a dragon. They can penetrate the truth. They can also discern some of the abilities of other people and beings. He thinks, Jungwoo said he happened to make a contract with the ancient dragon, Calathus, on the 11th floor. Is this a vestige of that? Another message popped up saying, sensory enhancement, the 5 senses will sharpen exponentially. He thinks, sensory enhancement seems like a symptom of my cold-blooded nature. The one that catches my eye the most is the last. He see the pocket watch and says, foresight. I assume it's because of this. He thinks, okay, let's just try it out. It seems like all you wanted me to do was find the elixir, then live quietly. But I don't think I can just stand by and watch. He calls his superiors and requests a discharge. And says, I'm sorry. He throws the phone in the dustbin and thinks, was that the last thing I needed to take care of? I put the house up for sale. And I burned my military uniform and backpack. In the backpack I just bought, I put a few articles of clothing and as much rations as possible. And I packed several large plates, similar to ones in used during my service, an emergency kit, and other necessities. I wanted to get firearms and explosives from the black market too. But it'll only become a burden if I'm not able to get consistent supply of ammunition. Has it been about a month since the last campaign started? Players who enter later get a considerable advantage based on when they start. Late players are able to amass more points to catch up to leading players and are also given an exclusive hidden piece. He bring out the pocket watch and thinks, this is the moment that guy will appear. A black gate appears in front of him. The door opens and he thinks, I will show the people beyond this door, starting today. Exactly who they messed with. I am Jungwoo Cha. A message popped up saying, you are on floor 0 tutorial. He thinks, I'm really inside. It's the same as what I was in the diary. The tower is both an ordeal and a gateway that tests those competing to become God. To surmount the tower, you must prove you are worthy. And the tutorial is where your worth is tested. It means that the low lives that hurt Jungwoo are just beyond here. Just wait. I'll be there soon. To enter the tower, I have to first pass the tutorial with the highest possible score. Yes, the highest score ever. I have to rank first. With all the hidden pieces concealed in different places, I have to gather as many of these as possible and level up as much as I can. He wears a white mask and thinks, I need to focus on getting the best stats and abilities before ascending the tower. A small portal appears in the roof. Someone says, oh, a visitor at this last stage. I almost didn't see you pass by. Jungwoo takes his fighting stand. A goblin wearing a suit appears in front of him saying, Even such a magnanimous being as I, will feel hurt by such uncalled for attitude. I suggest that you put your knife down. Allow me to introduce myself, I am Avulk, the host of Floor Zero. Will you not give a round of applause? After all, a meeting of this sort is also fate, is it not? Do you trust what I say then? He says, it is best to listen to the advice of the host, even in trivial matters. Host says, it seems you know something about us. Due to you mask, I at first thought you were simply a person who is easily embarrassed. In any case, this will all be much easier for me to explain. The tutorial here is divided into a total of 7 sections, labeled A through G. The environment and challenge are different in every section of the trial. You will be given a score based on the manner in which you overcome the trial within the allotted time. And all the scores will be added up to a total, which will be publicized. And the advantages of getting a higher score. The higher you score, the greater the reward later on. The system is very thorough in that aspect. Jungwoo asks, what is the duration? Host says, the duration is 30 days, 1 month. How one divides their time between each section is up to the player, however. Approximately a week has passed since this campaign has begun. What would you like to do? Would you like to participate in the next campaign instead? The players ahead have probably advanced as far as a week has allowed them, far enough so that a later player could not possibly catch up. But I anticipated as much anyway. And normally, when one passes a section, it is recommended that players form parties of 3 to 5. I assume that means the score will be higher if a solo player passes a section. Host gives an evil smile and says, fundamentally, the tower builds up a player's achievements. Scoring takes into account the greatness and difficulty of one's achievements and progress, so there is no need to worry. Host thinks, these kinds of players usually go one of 2 ways. There's the one who overestimates their abilities and dies in an act of arrogance. Jungwoo starches his legs and says, I see. Host thinks, or the one who provides a spectacle for all to see. Host says, the trail will start immediately, if that is what you wish. A message pop up saying the trial of Floor Zero is beginning. Trial, a competitor trying to become God must prove that they are worthy to ascend the tower, pass all 7 checkpoints and 7 trails in the allotted time. Conditions of achievement: record a high score within the time limit. Time remaining, 549 hours 37 minutes. He zeroes the white starting line. A message popped up saying, you have entered section A. Disable or get past all the traps in the section. Some different color iron arrows come toward him with bullet speed. He thinks, there were warnings of all the various traps in section A in the diary. However, it can't be that much help since the location and triggering of the traps is random. He dodges a lot of arrows and blocks them with his backpack. He sees the iron arrows and thinks, iron arrows. I have to expose my body as little as possible by hugging the wall. One of the red arrows hits him in the leg. And some other arrows hit him as which popped up saying extreme pain is overtaking you body, you will fall into paralysis. Rationale is sustained by your cold-blooded nature. Paralysis has lifted, tolerance to the pain has been formed. I knew that it was dangerous, but I didn't know the extent. This is just the start, and I'm already in this state. It's madness. He bring out his first aid kit and attend to his wounds. A message popped up saying, you have been wounded, you will fall into paralysis. Rationale is sustained by your cold-blooded nature. Paralysis have lifted. Tolerance to the wound has been formed. He thinks there was a fixed timing to the arrows. There was also a signal, though it was extremely weak. I have to figure out the timing. Trying to distinguish the iron arrows in the dark is impossible with the naked eye. I have to listen to the sound of the gears turning furs. That's the only indication I can use to learn the location and direction of the iron arrows. Within that short fraction of time, I have to grasp that almost imperceptible sound, precisely sensory enhancement. A message popped up saying, the 5 senses are being activated. Hearing and enhanced. Mastery of the sensory enhancement skill has raised 0.8%. Hear the sound of the gears and sees towards the roof and says, I found it. He throws the knife towards the roof. Roof collapsed and arrows and gears starts to fall from the roof. He gives a small smile and think, it worked, I can find it. He is running and dodging and blocks a lot of arrows. The thinks, the specific stats that go up depend on the ways the iron arrows are dealt with. Agility, if the blue arrows are dodged. Strength if the red arrows are thrown aside. Stamina, if the yellow arrows hit me. One's achievements are as great as one's stats. It's a place like no other. He cough out a lot of blood. He wipes his face and thinks, though it bothers me that there's no way to increase the mana force stat yet. If I can just use this to raise my stats as steadily as I wish. The host sees him, thinks a player that becomes more fascination the more I watch, indeed. He seems to be a character I've not yet encountered. How strange it is my gaze keeps going to this one still stuck in Section A, rather than the players in Section E. The one must certainly be the real deal. Even if he passes this place, there are still many dangers lying ahead. But if he passes those as intelligently as he has already, I have an inkling there will be many more interesting spectacles to watch in this tutorial. A message popped up saying, "You have arrived at the terminal." He sees his stats window and thinks, overall, all the stats besides mana force increased exponentially. Raising this much in less than a day is not a bad achievement. That's not all. Muscle power, mobility, endurance, and destruction power have all improved. As soon as he enters the terminal, his wound starts to heal. He thinks, the player's rest point. I feel like I can finally catch my breath. He falls to the ground unconscious. After a while he opens his eyes slowly and thinks, did I fall asleep? A man appears in front of him and says, peekaboo. Jungwoo gets scared and jumps backwards and thinks, who the heck is this person? My sensory enhancement skill should have been active before. How did I now know he was beside me? He thinks, could it be, mysterious merchant? Merchant says, I am so glad to hear you know me. I love you, sucker, I mean, my dear patron. Allow me to introduce myself. I am a passing merchant called A. Jungwoo says, merchants, who sell necessities to players would suddenly appears at a terminal once in a while. A merchant who sells every item in the world from ordinary food to potions, skill books, and a diverse array of artifacts. Merchant says, on your way here, was there anything you felt you dearly needed, sir? I am a merchant who sells every object in existence in this world. If there is anything you need, please, do tell me. Medusa's deadly poison, a golden goral horn. Tiamat's left eye. Every one of these are formidable artifacts. There's no way a tutorial player could purchase any of these. I'm not at a stage to be relying on skills or artifacts yet. Right now, I need to focus on physical training. He finds an item and says, found it. It is a reset ticket. The reset ticket allows the player to return to any desired point. Jungwoo says, what is the price for the object sold here? Merchant says, we are merchants with consciences who request nothing but fair prices, we would never cheat you or anything of the sort. Since we couldn't extort money from our patrons, who have no money. Jungwoo says how convenient. Merchant says, you may pay with the stats you possess. You need only offer the equivalent OT in item value. Jungwoo thinks, 2 strength stats for spring water. That's highway robbery. Jungwoo says, there is an item I would like to buy. Merchant says, yes, please go on. For all the stats I acquired in Section A. I want to purchase a ticket that will reset Section A. Merchant says, are you referring to a reset ticket? Jungwoo says, I am. Merchant says, you are the first to seek that item. Most ask for items that will help them accomplish the next stage easily. No one hopes to start from the beginning again. Jungwoo says, there's just something I want to do. Merchant says, I see. What an interesting player. Merchant says, using the ticket is very simple. If you rip the ticket at the point you want to use it, you will be taken to the starting point immediately. Merchant says, now, I will withdraw in hopes of meeting again. A message popped up saying, all stats gained in section are being used for payment. Jungwoo thinks, I can feel power slipping away for me. You have procured section a reset ticket, he gets 10 tickets. He rips one of the ticket. He appears at the beginning of the floor 0. There is where I will amass as many stats as possible. After that we see that a while later he is doing it for the last time. He says, after going through the tutorial repeatedly and heightening my senses, I was able to gain a form of synesthesia. A skill that come from the ancient dragon, Calathus, Eyes of Truth, Dragon Eyes. He says, the first time I deployed Dragon Eyes, I was shocked by my new sight within the vision Dragon Eyes gave me, all color disappeared. It was filled with only white backgrounds and black lines. Lines that make up the foundation of living things. My little brother called these waves. Jungwoo reaches the terminal and thinks, was that about 4 hours? Considering it took over 34 hours the first time, this is an unbelievable development. My stats have gone up quite a bit. At the very least, I probably won't get beaten to death by just anyone now. The players ahead have probably already advanced to Section E. If I get any further behind, I won't be able to catch up. It's time to race now. A message popped up saying, you have entered the boss room of Section A. He thinks, I will get through Section B in one try. He starts running, a lot of arrows comes towards him, he deflects them all and think must move faster than what I see. His strength goes up by 1. He thinks, must move faster than what I see. I can't be a second behind. He steps on a trap tile, he see the floor under his feet starts to fall down, he jumps and sees downward there are a lot of spike, he thinks, falling means instant death. He spins and push himself ahead of the hole. His agility goes up by 1. The room up ahead is burning. He swings his dagger with full force, it opens a small path in. Middle of the flames. He starts to run. A message popped up saying, you cold-blooded nature has formed tolerance to the pain. Mastery of sensory enhancement has gone up to 15.6%. A boulder swings in front of him, he was barely able to dodge it. His sonori enhancement and other stats starts to increase. Then a copper dummy hits him in the stomach. He thinks, is this one of those figures that imitate players? A message popped up saying, copper dummy. A dummy that copies players' movements and behavior. It is also capable of attacking within a certain range. Jungwoo thinks, my brother made a note of these. They imitate a player's skills and force the player to improve them. If the player improves and gets past the dummies, they can the boss room. If they fail, they will be stuck there forever. There are 2 ways to get past them. Smash them head on, or stab them. He brings out his dagger and uses dragon eyes. He sees a dark black spot in the middle of his chest. And thinks, that's the weak spot. A shouts from behind him and says, that thing is moving according to a sensor. Locate the sensor, and go after it. Is that the guy whose presence I've been feeling for a while now with sensory enhancement? Jungwoo thinks, I already knew that the dummy was triggered by a sensor. I already knew that the dummy was triggered by a sensor. He attacks the dummy with his dagger and destroys it. The boy sees that and thinks impossible. Turns toward boy and thinks, I was only barely able to recognize that the copper dummy was triggered by a sensor through my sensory enhancement. That's something ordinary players would never know. Yet how did he know? Boy gets scared and says, what are you going to do to me? Jungwoo thinks, he looks so weak. Jungwoo says, what would I do? Boy says, I'm asking, what are you planning to do to me? Jungwoo says, I've no interest in that. I want to know how you knew. That the dummy moves based on a sensor, that's what I want to know. The boy says, I just saw the threads of mana force wrapped around the copper dummy. Jungwoo thinks, of course. The capability to see the force of mana means their affinity to mana has reached the maximum level possible. This is true even amongst those who know how to use mana. Jungwoo says, what I am interested in is how you're able to see mana force and use it. Are you able to tell me how? If I learn this skill, it would be a huge help in mastering mana force. Boy see him with a shocked look on his face and says, what? Jungwoo says, I won't ask you to teach me for free. You seem to have been stuck here for a long time. I'll help you get out. What do you say? I doubt it's a bad deal for you. The boy is surprised to hear that. And do not say anything. Jungwoo turns around and says, sounds like a no. The boy grabs him and says, wait, it's not that. You're not lying about what you just said right now. Are you telling the truth? You don't know how to use mana force. Jungwoo says, I don't think I have any reason to lie. Boy points towards the broken dummy and says, no way. How is that possible when you don't even know how to use mana force? Boy thinks, after pouring my skills into it and using physical force, even I couldn't leave a scratch on it. He beat that thing to death with a few movements, yet he doesn't know how to use mana force. Who the heck is this person? Boy says, fine, I'll help you. My name is Yule. What do I have to do? Jungwoo says, great Yule. First, I'll open up the pathway, so you just follow behind me. Yule says, alright. Jungwoo sees towards the boy with his dragon eye and says, by the way, why is it that you're in that shape? Your appearance right now, it's disguise. You're what? 10 years old. You're young. And you're short. Seems you're not an ordinary. Make sure to respect me as you elder. I don't go easy on children. Yul says, understood. He kills a lot of dummies. He is surprised to see how strong Jungwoo is. Jungwoo says, we're almost at section B now. Feel free to tell me anytime now. Yul says, I don't know what you'll make of this, but I'm innately able to see mana. Jungwoo says, innately. Is this a bloodline ability? Yul says, it is similar. Though it was rare on Earth, instances like these were quite common in other worlds. Instances in which remarkable abilities or psychic powers are a component of one's genetic makeup. People like these usually have mighty ancestors whose abilities are passed down from generation to generation through their bloodline. One's ability would manifest at the specific stage in their life, after which they would make their ancestors' ability their own by accomplishing great feats until they ultimately pass it down again to their offspring. Yul said this was his case. Yul says, the ability I have inherited is similar to affinity, where I can feel and taste the force of mana. That's also how I recognized that the copper dummy was connected to a sensor. Jungwoo thinks, is he a similar case to Jungwoo? My little brother's special nature was myriad affinity. Included in myriad was mana. Accordingly, he sensed mana with utter issei, in contrast to the difficulty that people from Earth commonly encounter. More precisely, he wielded mana masterfully. It was like he had recovered a precious object he had once lost. He said that his colleagues around him were astonished when they saw this. This special trait was also exactly why he had been chosen by the ancient dragon, Calathus. After all, having an affinity for all things also means it's possible to inherit a draconic ability that's fundamentally impossible for any ordinary human to ever receive. In other words, the two of them could be classified as savants. I'm not included in that. Yul thinks, you can think of mana as a sort of river. Mana forces water pulled from this river to a sort of levee or reservoir. Jungwoo thinks, a reservoir. A message popped up saying you have passed section A as a solo player. You have accomplished a rare achievement. Extra karma will be added. You have secured 500 karma. Jungwoo thinks, 800 points. Karma, the concept of karma is very important in the tower. The tower and the administrators use this as a basis for distributing rewards. Among players, it can be used as a currency, so you can buy and sell items. All players must amass as many of these points as possible. Jungwoo stands in front of a door and thinks, I've amassed this quantity just from passing through section A. Others would be astonished if they heard. He opens the door and thinks, this still isn't enough. I need to amass more as much as possible. He walks through the door and a message popped up saying, you have entered section B. After that we see that there are hundreds of players are in the starting point of section B. A lot of them are injured, some of them sees Jungwoo and thinks, who's that? And what's with that mask? A week's passed since the tutorial's begun, but there's another competitor. Did he actually pass through that cutthroat section alone? Jungwoo says, why aren't you coming in? Yul thinks, finally. He thinks, I'm finally out. Yul sees some people and gets angry. Jungwoo asks Yul, are they your team members? Yul says, they no longer have anything to do with me. They starts to walk away and Yul says, where was I? This mana stream, or whatever you called it. Yul says, about that. Jungwoo says, surprisingly, Yul knew a lot about mana. It was still difficult to understand most of it, but I was able to grasp a general concept of mana force and mana thanks to him. Jungwoo says, I have a rough understanding of mana force now. What's an easy way of using it? No, actually, how can I sense it? Yul says, I'm not quite sure either. Truthfully, it's hard for me to explain since it's something I was always able to do. Jungwoo says, is that right? Well, there's nothing to do about that then. I presume you're going to wait until that end of tutorial, then go outside. Shall we part ways here then? Yul says, oh, yes. Some players come near Yul and says, Yul. The first part of the Second Life ranker ends here. Patreon and Discord links are in the description if you want support me. Thanks for watching.